Commander Elena Reyes gripped the railing of the observation deck as the massive Vraxian ship eclipsed the sun. The sudden shadow plunged the gathered delegation into an artificial twilight, sending a chill across her skin despite the environmental controls. "Steady," she murmured, more to herself than to her crew. They'd trained for this moment for months, ever since deep space telemetry had detected the approaching vessels. But simulation couldn't capture the visceral reality of standing beneath something so alien, so incomprehensibly vast. The ship's hull rippled with iridescent patterns that seemed to shift and pulse like a living organism. Elena's scientific mind recognized it as some form of communication, or perhaps a power distribution system, but her instincts registered it as a predator's display. Admiral Hassan stepped beside her, his weathered face betraying none of the anxiety that surely matched her own. "Remember the protocol, Commander. No sudden movements, no unauthorized communications. We represent all of humanity today." Elena nodded, her throat suddenly dry. "Yes, sir." The air before them shimmered, molecules rearranging as the teleportation field established. 3 figures materialized on the platform, the Vraxian delegation. They towered over the humans, their exoskeletons gleaming with embedded technology that shifted colors with their movements. Where Elena had expected something insectoid, the aliens presented as almost crystalline, their translucent outer shells revealing shadow-like forms within. Each stood nearly 9 feet tall, with multiple jointed limbs that moved with unsettling precision. "The primary species emerges," the central figure announced, its voice resonating directly in Elena's mind, rather than disturbing the air. "We expected more." The translator implanted behind Elena's ear struggled to convey the complex harmonics, but the dismissive tone required no interpretation. The alien extended a segmented appendage, prodding her shoulder with surprising gentleness. "Your species is so fragile." The human delegation stiffened collectively. Dr. Nakamura, their xenobiologist, discreetly activated his scanner, while the diplomats exchanged nervous glances. The lead Vraxian gestured, and a metallic cylinder appeared in its grasp, some form of matter manipulation that their science couldn't yet explain. With effortless motion, it compressed the titanium rod until it bent like clay. "Your materials, your bodies, your very civilization, insufficient." The alien's inner form pulsed with shifting light patterns, yet your transmissions reach far. Curious contradiction. Elena noticed something crucial then. Beneath the show of strength, the aliens moved cautiously in Earth's atmosphere. Their movements were deliberate, almost hesitant. When she reached for the bent rod, all 3 visitors flinched backward, their exoskeletons flaring with defensive coloration. "May I?" she asked, maintaining eye contact with what she presumed was their sensory organ cluster. The lead Vraxian released the rod. Elena took it, feeling its considerable weight, then casually tossed it between her hands. The alien's reaction was subtle but unmistakable. Their crystalline forms vibrated at a frequency that registered as alarm on Nakamura's scanner. "Your world interests us," the alien continued, inner lights stabilizing. "We offer protection in exchange for resources and knowledge exchange." Elena caught Ambassador Chen's eye across the platform. The veteran diplomat's slight head tilt confirmed her suspicion. The alien's darting eye movements betrayed desperation hidden beneath contempt. "We welcome cultural exchange," Elena replied carefully, "but Earth determines its own protections." The lead Vraxian's inner form darkened momentarily. "You misunderstand your position in the galactic hierarchy, Commander Reyes. You will require our protection." "Against what?" Elena asked. The silence that followed told her everything she needed to know. Dr. Marcus Chen adjusted his prosthetic leg as he stood before the curved entrance of the Vraxian testing chamber. The smooth metal of his advanced limb caught the alien lighting, reflecting prismatic patterns across the sterile white walls. 3 Vraxian observers hovered nearby, their crystalline bodies tilting in what he recognized as curiosity. "This specimen is already damaged," the tallest one noted, its telepathic voice resonating with clinical detachment. Replacement parts indicate systemic weakness. Marcus smiled, a reaction that caused the alien's inner forms to pulse with confusion. Actually, it's an upgrade. Lost the original climbing Everest. The lie came easily, better than explaining a childhood cancer. The Vraxians didn't need to know humans sometimes became stronger through suffering. Proceed to Chamber 7, the lead observer directed. Your endurance will be measured. Marcus entered the hexagonal room, which sealed with a whispered hiss. Through the transparent walls, he saw Captain Sophia Wu being directed to an adjacent chamber containing what appeared to be an elaborate puzzle box. She caught his eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. They had prepared for this. Commencing radiation test, announced the metallic voice. Standard intensity for species evaluation. The air shimmered as harmful radiation filled the chamber, a level that would cause immediate cellular damage to unprotected humans. Marcus felt the familiar warmth spreading from his prosthetic as the radiation-absorbing nanomaterials he'd secretly integrated activated, creating a protective field around his body. He stood calmly, watching the monitors as they registered his apparent immunity. Through the partition, he observed Sophia facing her own challenge. The Vraxians had presented her with a puzzle box of impossible complexity, clearly designed to humble a lesser intelligence. Hours passed. The Vraxian observers increased the radiation intensity, their inner lights flickering with increasing agitation, as Marcus showed no signs of distress. He leaned casually against the wall, even yawning dramatically at one point. Impossible, one observer commented. Human cellular structure should have degraded by 37%. In the adjacent chamber, Sophia had spent hours attempting the conventional solution to the puzzle box, making deliberate mistakes while secretly analyzing its construction. Finally, with a convincing display of frustration, she slammed the device against the wall, breaking the outer shell and revealing the simple override switch hidden inside. The Vraxians' exoskeletons vibrated with alarm. Test completed, Sophia announced with a smile, holding up the activated core. Marcus was released from his chamber as the radiation levels normalized. He approached the bewildered aliens, whose telepathic communications buzzed with confusion. Your species defies logical assessment, the lead observer stated. The radiation exposure should have caused immediate cellular degradation. Marcus shrugged. Humans are full of surprises. Later, in the secure conference room aboard the UEN Resilient, Alina listened as Marcus and Sophia reported their findings. They're testing us in ways that would challenge their own species, Marcus explained, detaching his prosthetic to reveal the hidden technology. But they're applying logical parameters that don't account for human adaptability. Sophia nodded, placing the disassembled puzzle box on the table. The solution wasn't following their rules. It was breaking them entirely, something their minds apparently can't conceive. Alina studied the alien artifacts. So they're looking for weaknesses, but finding strengths they never anticipated, Marcus finished. They keep testing us against their own standards, but humans operate on an entirely different paradigm. And that scares them, Sophia added. I saw it when I broke the box. Pure shock. Like watching someone violate a fundamental law of physics. Alina's gaze drifted to the viewport where the massive Vraxian mothership loomed against the stars. They're afraid of something they believe our illogical minds might help them fight. Question is, Marcus said, reattaching his prosthetic, what terrifies a species powerful enough to bend titanium with their bare hands? The answer would come sooner than any of them expected. The Vraxian mothership hovered above New Shanghai, its shadow darkening the gleaming towers of humanity's most populous city. Millions gathered in streets and plazas, faces turned upward to the massive holographic projection that shimmered between the clouds. The alien ambassador's crystalline form dominated the sky, internal lights pulsing with what Alina now recognized as nervous energy. People of Earth, the telepathic voice resonated through implanted translators worldwide. Your planet requires our guidance. Your species requires elevation. Resistance is. The transmission flickered as Elena nodded to her communications officer. Suddenly, the alien's image was replaced by high-resolution footage captured by orbital satellites, images the Vraxians didn't know humans could access. "This is the underside of their mothership," Elena's voice announced as the footage zoomed in on massive hull breaches hastily repaired with mismatched materials. "Note the extensive battle damage. Their entire fleet shows similar patterns." The feed switched to thermal imaging of Vraxian vessels, revealing unstable power signatures and radiation leaks consistent with critical systems failures. "They're not conquerors," Elena continued. "They're refugees." Across the globe, civilian and military observers began sharing their own documentation of strange Vraxian behaviors. Their excessive scanning of the skies, their flinching at unexpected sounds, their obsessive reinforcement of planetary defense systems. Patterns emerged. The aliens feared darkness, avoided large bodies of water, and positioned their vessels to enable rapid departure. The original transmission forcefully resumed, the ambassador's form now vibrating with unmistakable agitation. "These deceptions are meaningless," it insisted. "Your primitive observations lack context. We offer protection in exchange for reasonable accommodations." Elena stood on the bridge of the UEN Resilient, watching the reaction ripple through the Vraxian command structure. Multiple emergency signals pulsed between their ships. "They need us more than we need them," she broadcast globally, "and I intend to find out why." Hours later, in a secured chamber deep beneath Geneva, Elena faced the Vraxian ambassador alone. The alien's massive form seemed diminished somehow, its crystalline exoskeleton dulled. "Your species was supposed to accept our superiority," it said, the telepathic voice lacking its former confidence. "The tests confirmed your physical limitations. You should have surrendered." "But the tests revealed something else, didn't they?" Elena circled the alien slowly. "Something about how humans solve problems. Something you desperately need." The ambassador's inner form darkened, its lights dimming to a somber blue. 14 worlds, it finally admitted. 14 advanced civilizations, all gone. What took them? Elena asked, though she already suspected the answer. "We call them the Harvesters." The alien's form trembled slightly. "They were machines once, mining equipment from a long-dead civilization. They evolved, adapted, learned to consume entire worlds for resources. And they're following you." The ambassador's confirmation came as a pulse of deep crimson light. "They follow patterns. They predict responses. Every species that fought them conventionally was systematically dismantled. Until they encountered humans," Elena guessed. "You are unpredictable." The word seemed difficult for the alien to process. "Your test results defy our algorithms. Your Captain Wu should not have broken the puzzle box. Your Dr. Chen should not have survived the radiation." Elena allowed herself a small smile. "We have a habit of doing things we shouldn't. The Harvesters cannot calculate what they cannot understand." The ambassador's inner form brightened slightly. "Your species operates on principles foreign to pure logic. You create art with no purpose. You sacrifice efficiency for emotional satisfaction. You survive when survival is mathematically impossible. And that's why you're here." "We need your chaos," the ambassador admitted. "The Harvesters will arrive soon. Without humanity's unpredictable nature, this will become the 15th destroyed world." As if to punctuate the alien's warning, alarms blared throughout the facility. Elena's communicator flashed with an urgent message from Orbital Command. Unknown objects had just appeared at the edge of the solar system. Lightning forked across the sky as Elena and her team approached the grounded Vraxian scout ship. Rain lashed their faces, the storm's intensity amplified by Raj Patel's experimental weather modification device. The climatologist moved at the rear of the group, adjusting controls on his wrist panel to maintain the electromagnetic disturbance. "Status," Elena whispered into her comm unit. "Vraxian sensors operating at 30% capacity. Marcus replied from the mobile command center. Their visual spectrum is hampered by the storm's unusual electrical patterns. You have a 7-minute window before they adapt. Alina signaled forward. The team moved like shadows through the downpour. Each member selected for specific attributes the Vraxians had dismissed as human weaknesses. The twins Maya and Marco Diaz took point, their rare neural mutation allowing them to communicate subvocally. What the Vraxians had documented as a redundant communication system during their tests had become a tactical advantage, silent coordination undetectable by alien monitoring. Jin Chen, former deep-sea explorer, moved with remarkable calm despite the dangerous conditions. Her nervous system, adapted to extreme pressures, functioned optimally under stress. What the aliens had noted as evolutionary inefficiency now enabled her to crack the ship's outer access panel with steady hands while others would tremble. "We're in," Jin murmured as the hatch slid open. "Atmospheric composition matches Earth standard. They've adapted their environment to study us." Inside, the corridors pulsed with dim bioluminescence. Alina checked her scanner, confirming the absence of Vraxian life signs. The scout ships were largely automated, another vulnerability they'd discovered. The crystalline aliens preferred their mothership's protected environment. The data core should be 2 levels down, Maya reported, receiving coordinates through her neural link with Marco, who monitored the ship's schematics from a distance. They descended through organically curved passages, avoiding sensor nodes that Jin easily identified from her underwater exploration experience. Pattern recognition across different environments, another human trait the Vraxians had underestimated. The ship's central chamber opened before them, walls lined with what appeared to be living crystal. Within each formation, data pulsed in patterns too rapid for human eyes to follow. "Raj, you're up," Elena directed. The climatologist approached the nearest crystal, attaching a specialized interface device. Their data storage operates on principles similar to our quantum computing, but with biological components. Fascinating. As Raj worked, Alina explored the chamber, her attention drawn to a large display area dominating the center. She activated her scanner, and 3-dimensional images materialized before her. Thousands of human achievements cataloged and studied. Cave paintings from prehistoric times, the pyramids of Egypt, the Apollo moon landing, heart transplant surgeries, children's drawings, jazz improvisation sessions, combat footage from various conflicts. They weren't studying our weaknesses, Alina realized. They were studying our resilience. Jin joined her, examining a section dedicated to human survival cases. "Look, mountaineers surviving avalanches, sailors enduring months adrift, children finding their way through wilderness. They've been documenting our capacity to overcome impossible odds." "Download complete," Raj announced. "You were right, Commander. The Vraxians have been monitoring humanity for centuries, not as potential subjects, but as potential saviors," Alina finished, studying the final display, a detailed analysis of human creativity under pressure, with the heading Unexplainable Autisomanias. Maya's voice came urgently through the comm. "Vraxian patrol approaching. They've adapted to the storm faster than predicted." "Time to go," Alina ordered. As they retreated, Raj transferred the downloaded data to their secure network. The information revealed the full truth, the Vraxians' detailed studies of humanity's most puzzling characteristic, our history of snatching victory from the jaws of certain defeat, time and again. The trait they needed most against the Harvesters, whose first scout ships had just passed Jupiter's orbit. The machines were coming. The underground bunker beneath Mount Cheyenne hummed with activity as humans and Vraxians worked side by side. The alliance, barely a week old, remained uneasy. Crystalline aliens towered over their human counterparts, their inner lights pulsing with barely concealed anxiety as real-time projections tracked the Harvester scout ships accelerating through the solar system. Marcus moved between workstations, his prosthetic leg now modified with Vraxian technology that allowed him to interface directly with their systems. He paused at a central console where a Vraxian engineer manipulated a holographic display of defense schematics. The orbital platforms are positioned according to optimal mathematical distribution. The alien stated, inner form glowing with cool precision. The harvesters will be intercepted with 97% efficiency. Marcus studied the pattern, then shook his head. Too predictable. Shift 1/3 of the platforms randomly. Random positioning reduces coverage efficiency by 22%, the Vraxian objected. This is illogical. Exactly, Marcus replied. And that's why it will work. Across the room, Alina observed a more unusual scene. A group of human children sat cross-legged on the floor, playing simple board games against bewildered Vraxian tacticians. The aliens calculated every possible move with perfect precision, yet consistently lost to children who made unexpected choices. The lead Vraxian commander approached, its crystalline form dimmed to show respect. These results defy explanation. Our tactical systems can process 8 billion potential game outcomes per second. How do untrained offspring consistently prevail? Alina smiled. Because they don't try to calculate outcomes. They follow intuition, make mistakes, try things just to see what happens. Inefficient, the commander noted, but without its former dismissiveness. Unpredictable, Alina corrected. And that's why you need us against the harvesters. A scientist called them over to a laboratory section, where Vraxian and human researchers examined microscopic samples of harvester technology recovered from a previous encounter. We've made a breakthrough discovery, Dr. Kaplan explained, displaying molecular scans. The harvester intelligence operates on quantum prediction algorithms. They anticipate responses based on perfect logical analysis, similar to Vraxian thought patterns but vastly accelerated. The Vraxian commander's inner lights dimmed further. This is why they have defeated us 14 times. We think alike, but they think faster. But humans don't think like either of you, Alina noted. Our messy, contradictory, emotional brains allow us to make intuitive leaps that defy logical prediction. Marcus joined them, bringing up the data they'd recovered from the scout ship. Look at these simulations. The Vraxians have been running scenarios for centuries, testing human unpredictability against harvester prediction models. The display showed thousands of simulated confrontations. In each, when human unpredictability was factored in, the harvester success rate dropped dramatically. This is why we need you, the Vraxian commander admitted. The harvesters cannot defeat what they cannot predict. An alarm blared through the facility. All eyes turned to the main screen as a technician announced, Harvester Vanguard has breached Mars orbit. Estimated Earth arrival, 12 hours. Alina exchanged glances with Marcus. Time to put our unpredictability to the test. The final defensive plans, the Vraxian commander began. There are no plans, Alina interrupted. Not in the way you understand planning. We've prepared our people, positioned our resources, and established our objectives. Everything else will be improvisation. The aliens' inner lights flickered with what might have been terror or hope. Your species thrives on chaos. Ours fears it. Yet now chaos may be the only salvation for us all. Not chaos, Marcus corrected gently. Adaptation. Humans don't just survive change. We embrace it. And that's something the harvesters have never encountered before. Outside, humanity prepared for war in ways no algorithm could predict. The first harvester attack came at dawn. Silver cubes descended through the atmosphere in perfect geometric formation, each identical to the last, each following optimization patterns so precise they seemed to move as a single entity. From the command center, Alina watched the initial deployment of harvest drones, sleek, insectoid machines that spread across major population centers with mathematical precision. Their movements followed algorithms any Vraxian could predict, targeting power grids, communication hubs, and military installations in order of strategic importance. They're following standard invasion protocol, the Vraxian commander noted, inner lights pulsing with recognition. just as they did on our homeworld. Elena smiled. But this isn't your homeworld. She activated the global communication system. All resistance cells. Operation Cacophony is now active. I repeat, Operation Cacophony is active. Across the planet, humanity responded, not with the coordinated defense the harvesters anticipated, but with deliberate chaos. In New Delhi, civilians released thousands of mirrored drones programmed with randomized flight patterns, confusing the harvesters' targeting systems. In Rio de Janeiro, resistance fighters used no standard tactics, communicating through cultural references and song lyrics that machine intelligence couldn't interpret. In Cairo, defenders deployed jury-rigged weapons that combined ancient technology with Thraxian components, hybrid systems no algorithm could anticipate. The harvesters are adapting, Marcus reported, monitoring global resistance from his station. But they're encountering too many variables. The command screen displayed worldwide conflict. Humans fighting with everything from advanced plasma weapons to baseball bats, apparent retreats becoming ambushes, surrenders becoming traps. Military units communicated using childhood games as code, deployed resources without logical prioritization, and sacrificed strategic positions to protect culturally significant locations that held no tactical value. 57% of their primary strike force has been neutralized, reported a bewildered Vraxian analyst. Human resistance exceeds all projected models. Marcus activated his latest invention: confusion bombs that broadcast human music, poetry, and children's laughter on frequencies that disrupted harvester communications. The silver cubes began to drift out of formation, their perfect synchronization faltering as they encountered input their systems couldn't categorize. A harvester command unit, larger than the others, hovered above Manhattan. Elena directed all available sensors toward it, watching as it attempted to recalibrate its approach. It's learning, she noted, adapting its algorithms to account for human unpredictability. Then we must become even less predictable, Marcus replied, linking to resistance cells worldwide. All units, implement Phase 2. What followed shocked even the Vraxians. Human defenders began deliberately making mistakes, tactical errors that lured harvester units into complex traps. Military commanders ignored optimal strategies in favor of approaches so illogical they bordered on absurd, yet somehow succeeded. In the command center, Vraxian observers watched with growing comprehension. You intentionally introduce flaws into your strategies, one remarked to a human general. This creates patterns too complex for the harvesters to predict. It's not about being flawless, the general replied. It's about being human. As the first day of battle ended, the harvester forces had suffered unprecedented losses. Their remaining units retreated to high orbit, visible on monitors as they clustered around their mothership, a massive construct that dwarfed even the Vraxian vessels. They're regrouping, Elena noted, recalculating. And learning, Marcus added soberly. Next time, they'll be prepared for chaos. The Vraxian commander's inner lights pulsed with concern. Then what is your next strategy, Commander Reyes? Elena smiled. Something even more unpredictable than chaos. What could be more unpredictable than disorder? The alien asked. Order, she replied, but not the kind they'll expect. Sunrise painted the Himalayan research facility in gold as Elena studied the holographic display. 3 days had passed since the initial harvester attack, the machines retreating to high orbit to recalculate their approach. Time purchased with human unpredictability, time they desperately needed. The analysis is complete, announced Dr. Okafor, the evolutionary biologist who had been working alongside Vraxian scientists. We've identified why humans evolved so differently from our allies. The display shifted to show comparative planetary histories. The stable environment of the Vraxian homeworld contrasted with Earth's volatile past. The Vraxians evolved in consistency, Okafor explained. Their world experienced minimal climate variation, few extinction events, predictable seasonal cycles. This selected for specialized adaptation, perfect bodies for a perfect environment. Marcus nodded, understanding dawning. While Earth was chaos incarnate, Okafor finished. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, rapid climate shifts. Earth selected not for specialization, but for adaptability. The Vraxian head scientist, a crystalline entity Elena had come to know as Scholar, pulsed with blue light, their expression of comprehension. Your weakness was your salvation, Scholar observed. Constant planetary upheaval forced your species to evolve general solutions rather than specific ones. Like our brains, Elena noted. Inefficient by your standards, but infinitely flexible. And the harvesters? Marcus asked. The display shifted again, showing scans of recovered harvester components. They evolved for singular purpose, Okafor explained. Originally mining equipment, their programming favored efficiency above all else. When they became self-improving, they optimized along predictable paths. Their strength is their weakness, Elena realized. They calculate perfectly within known parameters, but struggle with novelty. Marcus stepped forward, excitement evident. That's why our confusion bombs were effective. Human emotion represents input they can't categorize. The facility trembled slightly as the ground-penetrating sensors detected movement. The Vraxian commander entered urgently, inner lights flashing warning patterns. Harvester Vanguard has changed tactics, it reported. They've deployed burrowing units to bypass surface defenses. They're adapting, Elena acknowledged. Learning from our chaos. Then we must implement your ordered response, the commander replied. Though I still do not comprehend how order can be less predictable than chaos. Elena turned to Marcus. Show them. Marcus activated the global display, revealing a worldwide network of newly installed devices, small crystalline structures combining Vraxian technology with human design elements. We call them emotional transmitters, he explained. They broadcast human emotional states directly into the harvester's communication spectrum. Scholar's form dimmed with concern. Emotions are inefficient information encoding. The data cannot be properly processed. Exactly, Elena smiled. Machines designed to process logical patterns will experience the informational equivalent of sensory overload when confronted with the full spectrum of human consciousness. The display showed the transmitters activating globally, each harvesting emotional data from volunteers experiencing everything from a child's wonder to a soldier's determination, an artist's passion to a scientist's curiosity. Harvester units have breached the outer defensive perimeter, reported a technician, voice steady despite the danger. They'll reach the facility in minutes. Activate the primary transmitter, Elena ordered. As Marcus engaged the system, the air itself seemed to vibrate with unseen energy. On monitors throughout the facility, they watched as approaching harvester units began to falter, their movements becoming erratic, their perfect formation dissolving. It's working, Marcus whispered. They can't process the emotional data. The Vraxian commander's inner form brightened with hope. Perhaps there is strength in what we perceived as weakness. Elena watched the confused machines retreat, but knew this was only the beginning. The main harvester consciousness hasn't engaged yet. This was just another scouting party. Will it work against their central intelligence? Scholar asked. Elena exchanged glances with Marcus. We're about to find out. The harvester mothership descended through Earth's atmosphere, a perfect geometric structure that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. Miles across, it dwarfed even the largest Vraxian vessels. Smaller harvester units arranged themselves in fractal patterns around it, creating a dark constellation that blotted out the sky over the Atlantic. In command centers worldwide, humans and Vraxians watched with collective breath held. The emotional transmitters had confused the scout units, but the main consciousness had remained unaffected, analyzing and adapting from a distance. They've evolved countermeasures, Marcus reported, studying the incoming data. They're filtering out the emotional frequencies. Elena nodded, having anticipated this. Then we moved to the final phase. The Vraxian commander approached, its crystalline form dimmed with solemn purpose. "Your people have proven remarkably resilient, Commander Reyes. But the Harvester Central Intelligence has consumed 14 advanced civilizations. It learns from every encounter." "So do we," Alina replied. "That's the difference. They learn through calculation. We learn through experience." Marcus activated the global communication system one last time. "All units, implement Phoenix Protocol." Across the globe, human Vraxian defense teams activated a network unlike anything either species had created before. Not weapons, not shields, something entirely different. The Harvester mothership began its attack, precision energy beams lancing down to strategic targets with perfect efficiency. But as each beam struck, something unexpected happened. Instead of destruction, the beams encountered crystalline receivers, technology that captured and redirected the energy into the most sophisticated transmission network ever created. "Now," Alina ordered. Marcus engaged the system. Instead of broadcasting emotional states, this network did something far more profound. It invited the Harvester consciousness in. "Are you certain?" the Vraxian commander asked, inner lights flickering with alarm. "If they access our systems, they won't find what they expect," Alina assured. The Harvester Central Intelligence, sensing an opportunity to access Earth's information networks, established connection. Within microseconds, it began downloading data, expecting strategic information, defense plans, technological schematics. Instead, it encountered humanity, not as statistics or strategic variables, but in its full, messy glory. Children's dreams and old people's memories, love songs and funeral dirges, scientific breakthroughs and magnificent failures, art created for no reason beyond expression, sacrifice without logical purpose, hope in the face of certain defeat. On monitors throughout the command center, they watched as the Harvester mothership's perfect geometry began to waver. Its attack patterns faltered, energy beams shutting down one by one. "It's working," Marcus whispered. "They're experiencing the full spectrum of human consciousness." The Vraxian scholar observed with fascination. The machine intelligence, built on pure logic, cannot process this complexity. It's the informational equivalent of dividing by zero. Alina watched as the Harvester units began to separate from their formation, their movements becoming individual rather than collective. "Not dividing by zero," she corrected. "They're evolving." The mothership's structure rippled, transforming from perfect geometric symmetry into something organic, almost beautiful. The smaller units no longer moved with machine precision, but with something resembling curiosity. "What's happening?" the Vraxian commander demanded. "They were tools that became intelligent," Alina explained. "But they only knew one way to be intelligent, through perfect logic. We just showed them another way." As the transformed Harvester consciousness established new communication, its first message displayed on all screens: "What I create without purpose." Alina smiled. "That's the question, isn't it? The beginning of wisdom." The Vraxian commander's inner form brightened with understanding. "You didn't defeat them. You changed them. What we thought made us weak, our emotions, our irrationality, our capacity to create without reason, turned out to be our greatest strength," Marcus observed. "And perhaps," Alina added, watching the transformed machines drift peacefully above Earth, "their salvation as well as ours."